Good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Friday and another Blackbird workshop. So, all right, Edward, I see you're in the room today. Well, good. Let's see. I'm just kind of expecting a few more people in here, but yeah, it is what it is. So, some days we got a lot, some days not. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't have anything that needs mentioning here before we get started. So I guess, yeah, let me just. Yeah, seems like there was something minor I wanted to mention, but yeah, I guess not. Okay, so let's jump right into it here. All right, so Edward has emailed a question for today, and that will get us started. And let's see here. Just going to shrink this up just a little bit. There we go. All right, so we have a multifaceted, let's see here, stop loss and position management set of rules here that we're going to implement into the stop loss trailing rules here. All right, so the profit targets, pretty standard stuff here, and as usual, 98% of the time, all the complexity is in the stop loss trailing rules there, right? So that's what we'll focus on here. We have a whole bunch of set of rules there, and once we kind of break this down, yeah, we'll then realize how simple this really is. But of course, when you read through it, it does seem relatively complex, at least for an order management kind of system here. But so let's see here. All right, so here's the written rules there, and let's see. Yeah, I'll move this down a little bit further. Okay. So with that, let's just open up Blackbird and get things going. All right, so let's set up our 3 order sets and our 3 profit targets there, right? That's pretty straightforward. So I'm just gonna go with the market order. And we want 3 contracts. So the number of contracts is right up top there. So we'll just increase that to 3, all done. Next, let's put in the profit target. So we're going to use ticks. So I'm going to start with the 10 tick there and then open up the profit target and go into the initial placement there. Yeah, shrink that up a little bit. So open up the initial placement and then put in the actual value that's wanted there. So let's put in 200 ticks. And there we go. All right, click OK. So there's 1 contract there. And let's see here. Now, we could continue on here and just copy A and set that, but we can, let's see, well, actually, no. That's right. So my instincts are still to put in as much of the stop loss as possible there. But recently, well, actually, maybe it's not so recent anymore. Time flies there, but we now have the ability to actually copy individual stop losses there. So I think it's probably more intuitive just to set up the entry and profit targets there and just whip those out and get them done there. So let's see here. I order set B. That's going to be 2 contracts like so. And then our profit target is 400 contracts. So let's open that up and put in 400. There we go. Good to go there. And one more order set. So let's copy B now. Open up our profit target and go into the initial placement and then adjust our offset to 800. And there we have it. And also knock down the number of contracts. There we go. So now we got 3, 2, and 1 for the contracts. So there we go. There's our first 2 sections done. And now we can scroll down to the stop losses here. All right, so we have a couple of break-even triggers here, or break-even rules. So first one is when profit target 1 is hit. So, and let's see here. I think, yeah. So because I want to be able to use, the copy here, I need to throw something in here. There we go. Just throw something in. So to save myself a little bit of time there, I want to be able to use the copy stop from A, so on and so forth. So that means I do want to fill in as much of the stop loss trailing rules here for A as much as possible there. All right. So that means we need to skip down here to the divergence filters there. And there. All right. So if a divergence signal occurs, now of course I don't have this indicator here, so I'm just going to use a placeholder here. Then let's see here, we're going to move the 3 stop losses to break even. All right, so and actually, you know what, I just realized I don't actually have what the stop loss initial settings are. So, all right, let's just go with a few ATRs here. Yeah, I'll just use a default ATR stop loss for our initial placement there. All right, I'm just going to push it way out there, call it good there. So, all right, so we got something started here. So now we can go into the trailing actions here and start implementing this divergence indicator, which will trigger a break even here. So, all right. So key point here before profit target 1 is hit, right? We're going to move this stop loss to break even there, right? Move it to break even if we get a divergence signal. All right. There. So, all right, there we go. So we have the trailing actions tab here switched over. So let's enable the trailing actions there. And let's add our first trailing roll. And let's see here, what should we call this? All right, we'll just call it the first divergence there. And let's see, next, we're going to go into the trigger. So we need to read this divergence indicator here that's generating those signals. So the trigger we're going to use is indicator value. All right, load that up like so. And for the indicator here, I will plug in the NinjaTrader's candlestick pattern. Let's see, where'd it go? I went right by it. And there we go. So, yeah, I'm just going to use this because it does actually generate a signal, a quote signal output there. So we'll call it good, just to have a placeholder like so, right? So there we go. The plot pattern found, call it good. Now the next part here is, you have to figure out, go to the documentation for your divergence and figure out what is a long divergence output value and what's the value for a short divergence. So my guess is, let's see here, a long divergence is probably greater than 1, and a short divergence is probably a -1. So these defaults here are probably good enough there, right? But let's see here. So if we're in a long trade and we get a short divergence, short divergence, it'll give us, let's see here. Yeah, so we're going to need to flip these, right? So if we're in a long trade, then we're looking for, most likely, again, it depends on how this divergence indicator is written. Most likely, we're looking for a short divergence, which probably will be a -1. So I'm going to switch this to less than 0, right? So -1 is less than 0. And of course, I need to flip the short side, all right? So if we're in a short trade here, then we'd want to move our stop loss to break even if our divergence gives us a long divergence indication there, which will probably be a +1. So that'd be greater than 0, right? So point is, you may have to play around with the less than and greater than to figure out, what value you're actually getting that tells you to move to break even from your indicator there, all right? So that's going to be my guess for right now. Okay, and then, so now we have the trigger in place, which is reading that divergence signal, and now the action is to move to break even. So, right, what is break even? Well, we're going to move our order to not the last price, but I'm just going to use the average entry price, right? So if you wanted to, you could use the actual entry price, but I'm just going to use the average entry price there. All right, and that's it. So there's your break even. So, and just for good measure, we'll put a BE in there for break even. All right, so first divergence, break even. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. Let's see. All right, so we now have another rule here. All right, so if we actually have 160 ticks in profit and a divergence signal occurs, then we're going to close order set A. Right, we're going to close that out, and then the other two will move to break even. So, right, so the other two moving to break even, actually, will be implemented with this rule here, right? So when we copy this stop loss, right, this first divergence break even, this will get copied, and so that'll be this rule here. So, well, actually, it's a part of this. So that and that is one and the same there. But it is good to make sure that we have this clarity as to what are we doing with these last two order sets? You know, always make sure that you are clearly stating what you want to do with everything. You know, if you just, if this was the only thing written down, right, then there's ambiguity, you know, some subjective nature there as to what we're doing with those two. So it's good that that's written down. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we want to close this immediately. So let's add another trailing roll there. All right, so now we're looking for the first divergence and 160 ticks of profit there. So, all right, so now let's open up this trigger. And again, we need to implement, let's see, which one should we implement first? Let's do the profit or loss first. Yeah, I'm still kind of going through this in my head if it matters which one goes in first here, but I'll get back to that. Well, all right, so we're looking for a profit, and this time it's ticks. Switch that to ticks, and let's put in 160, like so. All right. Then now we're going to switch over to the advanced tab here. Or we could have switched over to the advanced tab to begin with. And now, let's see, it's just kind of minimize the profit or loss. And now let's add the indicator value. All right. And again, this is where we're going to plug in the divergence indicator. And again, I'm just going to plug in the candlestick pattern just so I have a placeholder in there. And let's open that back up and flip these around. Flip the condition. There you go, less than. This one would be greater than. So, and now the mode. Let's see. Yeah, so for the mode, we're going to use all simultaneously, right? So, so actually it doesn't matter which one of these I did plug in first. So I wasn't quite sure. I might have needed to use in sequence there. Yeah, I was thinking maybe I might need to use that. That's why I put the profit or loss in first here. But actually, we want both to be true simultaneously. So, or maybe not. Maybe, maybe if the trade does reach 160 ticks, but then, right, the market backs off. So now you're less than 160 ticks. And then you're like, okay, well, if a divergence comes in, but I did hit 160 ticks, then, yeah, then close out this trade. Right. So, you know, it's detailed work there. So, matter of details there. So I'm just going to go with the simplest approach here. And let's just make sure that we have 160 ticks and we get a divergence signal both at the same time here. Yeah, just as this states there. So, all right, so we have our triggers set up, and so now we're going to close this out here. So, and currently we do have a flatten, but this is flatten position, not flatten order set. All right, so we don't want to use flatten position. That'll flatten everything. All right, we just want to close out this one order set here. All right, so we're going to stick with the move order 2. And we just move it to wherever the market's at. Right, move your stop loss into the market, and then, right, the exchange will just fill your stop loss instantly there. right? So, and let's see if we're in, yeah, if we're in a long trade, just to be safe, since the markets do move pretty darn fast these days, you know, you might consider adding a tick or two above the last price, especially if you're trading something like the NQ that can move 5 ticks in a tenth of a second, right? So, okay, so there we go. And that will close out this order set just by simply moving your stop loss, you know, past the market. So, and also, yeah, since I didn't really include this last time, right? These are one-time actions, right? Moving to break even, you can only do that once. Obviously, you can only close out an order set once. So there is no repeat, right? Those are left undone. So, all right, let's see what next we have here. All right, so now we have a double divergence here. All right, now Blackbird does not count your indicator signals. All right, so your divergence indicator will need to identify, it will need to output that a double divergence did occur, right? It's not the job of Blackbird to start counting indicator signals there. So this divergence indicator will need to identify that there is a double divergence that's happening there, right? And then we can close out the entire position there. So essentially, we are making a copy of this rule here. So, all right, so let's add another one here. There we go. So double divergence, and we'll flatten there. So once again, we're going to open up the triggers and add that indicator value. And I'll just throw in the candlestick pattern like so again, and then switch the modes around like so. And so, yeah, also this time, yeah, I guess let me make sure. Yeah, hopefully that divergence indicator has a double signal, you know, output that can be read, that you know, that tells Blackbird that, yeah, there were two, there was a double divergence there, right? So yeah, so make sure you do select the correct output from that divergence indicator there. Okay, so there you go. Set up, plug in the divergence indicator. Make sure you select the correct plot that's telling Blackbird that there is a double divergence. And now, let's see, yeah, here's our double divergence there. And so the action this time will be to flatten the position like so. And again, flattening, right, is only a one-time action there. So there we go. Right, so now we just need to incorporate all of this into the other stop losses as well. So, and so before I do that here, let's just take a quick look at, right, we do have a super trend that's being used also to just bail on the trade, right, just close everything out. So we'll get back to this in a moment. This does not need to go into the stop loss. All right, so that can actually go into the signals, but we'll get back to that. So, all right, so for now, to wrap up the stop losses here, we can now go in and copy A. So we can make a copy of A. There we have it. So, and let's see here. So, we do need to remove, let's see, yeah, we don't need to remove, but it's good to remove trailing rules that will not be used, right? Because otherwise you're just having your computer, compute unnecessary calculations, right? And nowadays, with systems getting more and more complex, leaving, computational work in place that's actually will never do anything just slows down your computer, right? So just for the sake of saving, CPU calculation cycles and stuff like that, we're going to remove this trailing rule here because this only applies to order set A here. Let's just remove that, and there we go, like so. And let's see here. Yeah, let me move this over here. And all right, so I'm just double checking here to making sure I'm interpreting everything correctly. Let's see. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if we have 160 ticks of profit or not. We're still just moving all the order sets to break even, which is what we have here, right? First divergence just moved to break even. And then of course, yeah, if a double divergence occurs, then close the entire position. Well, yeah, this specifically says before profit target 1 is hit. All right, so that means I need to remove this rule here I need to delete this rule here, this trailing rule here. So let's get yeah. All right, so we're going to remove this rule here. So there. All right. And let's see. Okay, so now we can jump up to here and start implementing. Let's see. Well, actually, no, we're not at order set B or C yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. We do need to implement this one here. Yep. So we do need to monitor if profit target 1 is hit so that we can then move the next 2 order sets to break even. All right, so we do need to implement that. And let's see here. Yeah, I'm actually going to add that to this. All right, so we're going to put both of these conditions here in this break even, right? So we already have, all right, looking for or reading the divergence indicator. So now we just need to monitor profit target A and see if it's hit. So to open up the trigger, we're going to switch over to the advanced tab. Right. Now I could have added a second trailing roll if I wanted to, but I'm just going to keep this consolidated here. All right, and let's see here. So we need to use the order status changed. So first thing, select the order that we want to monitor. So that's going to be the profit target for A. And then what is the status that we're looking for? Well, if it's filled, right? If it's filled, that is our triggering mechanism. So if it's filled, then we're going to move to break even there. Now, the mode, obviously we're not going to get these, we're not going to get a divergence and the profit target filled simultaneously here. So we need to go back to the mode and say any, right? So either one of these, right? That's what we're looking for, just either one of these to become true, and then move our stop loss to break even there. Okay, there we have it. All right, so I think we're ready to move on here to our third stop loss here. All right, so we're just simply going to trail a moving average there. So, all right, so we're done with the stop loss for order set B. So let's now go and copy the stop loss from B. All right. So now let's open up our stop loss for C. And let's see, I'm just wondering if I can, if I should modify the triggers here. Let's see. No, I don't think so. Okay, so I'm just going to add a new trailing roll. All right, so we're going to start trailing a moving average when profit target B is hit. Okay, so let's go into the trigger, and we're going to grab the, let's see, where is it? There we go. The order status changed there. And this time we're looking for the profit target for B, and we're looking for when it's filled. You know, of course, you can use all filled or any filled. Doesn't matter. I always use any filled just in case you get a split fill there. And now the trailing part, right? So the action here. We're going to set this up to follow that SMA. So we're going to move our stop loss to, right? We're not going to move it to price. We're going to move it to an indicator value. So change the mode to indicator value. There's our SMA, and we're just going to switch it to a 50 period like so. And it does say below the 50 period SMA. So, you know, just add whatever your offset is below it. So there we go. I'll just put 2 ticks below, call it good. And so since this is an actual trailing rule, now we do need to set the repeat to indefinitely. There we go. Now, since this is an indicator that we're following, right, we're going to leave the repeat on once per bar, since the SMA is only going to update as each bar closes there. Yeah. And I believe that concludes it. All right. Yeah. Okay. So now let's go down to the bottom part here. So the super trend. All right. So yeah, if the super trend changes direction, yeah, most people just kind of close out the trade there as a statement here. But we do have a follow up that a bloodhound signal is being used here, right? So there's a bloodhound entry signal. And there's also a super trend exit signal as well, right? So I'm not going to implement this into the stop loss. There's no need to. The simplest thing to do is just load up that exit signal into a bloodhound signal. So I do actually have one I can use as an example here. So let's load up the bloodhound file. Right, and the one I have is this crossover test that I use all the time that just has example, signals that I can play around with Blackbird. And of course, the entry signal here would be selected, right? I'm also going to enable the exit signal and select whatever logic template is being used, right, for the super trend exit. And in this case, I just called it exit. So in this crossover test there, I just called it exit, and that has incorporated, the super trend flipping directions there. And there we go. So that makes it a lot simpler there to just exit the trade, instead of trying to incorporate that into your stop losses. And let's see. All right, I think that should do it. Let's click OK. And yeah. I will need to switch my data feed here. All right, so here we go. Here's our simulated data feed. Let's move that up. And let's also put the SMA 50 on here, just for good measure. All right, put a 50 period in there and call it good. All right, there we go. And let's see here. Yeah, just max out the trend and let's go long. There we have it. All right, well, while we're waiting for this to play out, let's see, there are a few comments here. So obviously I cannot test the divergence indicator, right? So, yeah, so Edward, you'll have to test that out, yourself. And once you get it implemented there. And let's see here. Oh, okay. Actually, it looks like Edward wants to use a 120 tick stop loss. All right, let's go in and go to the options tab here. Open up the initial placement and there we go. Put in negative 120 ticks and we're going to delete the ATR. There we go. All right, 120 ticks. Open up this one. Go into the initial placement. All right, put in a negative 120. Delete the ATR from there. All right, there we go. Click OK. And one more time. Go into the initial placement. Put in the negative 120. And delete that ATR. Call it good. All right, there we go. So we got the stop losses switched over to 120 ticks there. All right. And let's see. Yeah, all right. So let me go ahead and I will save this one out here. All right, I think that's a long enough name there. Let's see. Yeah. All right, save that out. There we go. Well, gee whiz, we're still waiting on the trend there to move up. All right. All right, let's see what else we have here. I think, let's see what Aaron has. Let's see. Aaron's asking, can I confirm we can optimize the order sets and to, etc.? I don't know what the and to, etc. means, but yeah, you can optimize order sets. Yep. All the numeric values within an order set can be optimized, except the number of contracts. So the number of contracts and some other things here. Let's see. Yeah, some other minus details. So like the order set custom settings here can't be optimized there, right? So this minimum or these placement safeguards can't be optimized, and the number of contracts. So everything inside, all the numeric values inside of each order, each order menu, right? This menu here, yeah, all that stuff can be optimized. And remember, NinjaTrader can only optimize a numeric value. So any menu that's not numeric cannot be optimized by NinjaTrader. So, right, only numbered values can be optimized there. So, all right, we're almost at our first profit target. Boy, it sure took a while. Let's see. So also, Edward, since I did save out this file here, you can just email into support and ask Mike for a copy of today's file there, and he can get that for you. All right, almost there. So all we're going to see is our stop losses, boom, moving to break even. There we go. Right? Nothing spectacular. There we go. The real thing, the real action will be once our profit target B is hit, then we'll start seeing some trailing going on here. Yeah, and all the rest, unfortunately, since I don't have any kind of divergence indicator, and I'm not skilled enough as a candlestick pattern person anymore to be able to see if I could generate a candlestick pattern to try and simulate a divergence there. So I can't, so I can't simulate a divergence there. Let's see, what do we got here? Well, actually, so for the stop loss for B and C, we already had profit target A hit, and the break even was triggered. So really, the stop loss for B is not going to do anything. So it's done. It's only trailing action here that it can ever do. So B is, it's just going to sit there until it gets hit. So stop loss C, that does have a trailing, so yeah, that can still, that still has one more trailing action that it can fulfill, but it's going to take forever for this simulated data feed to get up there, but it will. So, all right, well, gentlemen, I'm just waiting for the paint to dry here, waiting for the grass to grow for that market to get up there and hit that profit target. So in the meantime, gentlemen, if anybody else has another question, another Blackbird question, go ahead and get it into the Q&A window there for me. All right. Let's see. Wow. All right, we're almost at the 1 hour mark. So yeah. All right, so we're at the 1 hour mark. I will wait at least until we get profit target B hit, just so we can see the stop loss trailing there. So, and then after that, then I'll start the timer there. So, I don't see too many people in the room today. So I'm guessing this is probably going to be a short workshop for today. So. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to just, mute my microphone until that profit target gets hit. But if anybody has any other questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A window there for me, and I'll get those answered. All right, just about there. And that hits it. And now our stop loss is following a couple of ticks behind the SMA. All right, there you have it. Well, for this question, that's as much as I can test. And the rest of the testing will have to be done with those who have a divergence indicator. So, all right. So, gentlemen, it now is the 1 hour mark. And with that, since there's only a few people in the room today, I'm just going to set a 5-minute timer here. All right. And so if I don't see any more questions in the next 5 minutes, I'll assume we were done for today. So, all right. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and pop those into the Q&A window there for me. I'll get them answered. Otherwise, if not, we'll close up shop early today. All right. You're welcome there, Edward. Have a good weekend. Yeah. I guess let me just poke the bear here for a moment and just ask. So, Aaron, do you have any follow-up questions on your optimization inquiry that you had earlier? All right. Yep. Sounds good. Best thing to do is just start playing with it and, messing around with it. So there are a couple of videos out there. So just to make sure you're aware. All right. So if you have one of the documentation kind of pages pulled up here, right? And let's see here. If we go into Blackbird section, and optimization, there we go. So right there, let's open up that page here, open that, and then another tab, right? So here's the optimization page. Yeah, right there. So there is a introductory video here, I believe by Jeremy. I think Jeremy actually kind of did this little introductory explanation video there. And then also, is there another one here? Oh, there we go. So here's a quick demo on the bottom. Yeah, quick demo on the bottom for some reason. And yeah, I think this is a lengthier in-depth video there. All right, so there you go. There's 2 videos there for you. So, you know, put those on 1 1/4 speed and fly through those. You know, optimization is pretty darn simple, you know, pretty straightforward, nothing sophisticated about it. So, yeah. But also, you know, make sure you do understand how to use NinjaTrader's strategy analyzer to run the optimizer. You know, that is a component of the strategy analyzer. So there's 2 links there to Ninja's documentation there for that right there. So, yeah. All right, well, gentlemen, it looks like that's it for today. So it's just the 3 of us left in the room. So I think, yeah, this was a short day here. So, all right, guys, have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week. And as always, remember, you can email those questions in anytime. So, and I'll get them answered on the next workshop. Okay, bye-bye, guys.